Good. Hello. I am Sierra. You may also call me the Hermit. I have Edgar and Poe. So, yeah. We'll be reading William Wilson. What say of it? What say of conscious grim, that spectre in my path? Chamberlain's Faronida. Let me call myself, for the present, William Wilson. The fair page now lying before me need not be sullied with my real appellation. This has been already too much an object for the scorn, for the horror, for the detestation of my race. To the uttermost regions of the globe have I not the indignant winds bruited this unparalleled infamy. O outcast of all outcasts most abandoned, to the earth art thou not forever dead? To its honors, to its flowers, to its golden aspirations. And a cloud dense, dismal, and limitless, does it not hang eternally between thy hopes and heaven? I would not, if I could, here or today embody a record of my later years of unspeakable misery and unpardonable crime. This epoch, these later years, took unto themselves a sudden elevation and turpitude whose origin alone it is my present purpose to assign. Men usually grow base by degrees. From me, in an instant, all virtues dropped bodily as a mantle. From comparatively trivial wickedness I passed with the stride of a giant into more than the enormities of Elagabalus. What chance, what one event brought this evil thing to pass? Bear with me while I relate. Death approaches, and the shadow which for unto him has thrown a softening influence over my spirit, I long, and passing through the dim valley for the sympathy I had nearly said for the pity of my fellow men, I would fain have them believe that I have been, in some measure, the slave of circumstances beyond human control. I would wish them to seek out for me, in the details I am about to give, some little oasis of fatality amid a wilderness of error. I would have them allow what they cannot refrain from allowing, that, although temptation may have erewhile existed as great, man was never thus, at least, tempted before, certainly never thus fell. And is it therefore that he has never thus suffered? Have I not indeed been living in a dream? And am I not now dying a victim to the horror and the mystery of the wildest of all sublunary visions? I am the descendant of a race whose imaginative and easily excitable temperament has at all times rendered them remarkable, and in my earliest infancy I gave evidence of having fully inherited the family character. As I advanced in years, it was more strongly developed, becoming for many reasons a cause of serious disquietude to my friends and a positive injury to myself. I grew self-willed, addicted to the wildest caprices, and a prey to the most ungovernable passions, weak-minded, and beset with constitutional infirmities akin to my own. My parents could do but little to check the evil propensities which distinguished me. Some feeble and ill-directed efforts resulted in complete failure on their part, and of course in total triumph on mine. Thenceforward, my voice was a household law, and at an age when few children have abandoned their leading strings, I was left to the guidance of my own will, and became, in all but name, the master of my own actions. My earliest recollections of a school life are connected with a large, rambling Elizabethan house in a misty-looking village of England, where were a vast number of gigantic and gnarled trees, where all the houses were excessively ancient. In truth, it was a dreamlike and spirit-soothing place, that venerable old town. At this moment, in fancy, I feel the refreshing chillness of its deeply shadowed avenues, inhale the fragrance of its thousand shrubberies, and thrill anew with undefinable delight at the deep hollow note of the church bell, breaking each hour with sullen and sudden roar upon the stillness of the dusky atmosphere in which he fretted the Gothic steeple lay embedded in and asleep. It gives me, perhaps, as much a pleasure as I can now in any manner of experience, to dwell upon minute recollections of the school and its concerns. Steeped in misery, as I am, misery, alas, only too real, I shall be pardoned for seeking relief. However slight and temporary, and the weakness of a few rambling details, these, moreover, utterly trivial and even ridiculous in themselves, assume, to my fancy, adventitious importance, as connected with a period and a locality when and where I recognize the first ambiguous monitions of the destiny which afterwards so fully overshadowed me. Let me then remember. The house, as I have said, was old and irregular. The grounds were extensive, and a high and solid brick wall, topped with a bed of mortar and broken glass, encompassed the whole. This prison-like rampart formed the limit of our domain. Beyond it we saw but thrice a week, once every Saturday afternoon, when attended by 2 ushers, we were permitted to take brief walks in a body through some of the neighboring fields, and twice during Sunday, when we were paraded in the same formal manner to the morning and evening service in the one church of the village. Of this church, the principal of our school was pastor. With how deep a spirit of wonder and perplexity was I wont to regard him from my remote pew in the gallery, as with the step solemn and slow he ascended the pulpit. This reverend man, with countenance so demurely benign, with robes so glossy and so clerically flowing, with a wig so minutely powdered, so rigid and so vast, could this be he who of late, with sour visage and in snuffy habiliments, administered ferule in hand the draconian laws of the academy? Oh, gigantic paradox, too utterly monstrous for solution. At an angle of the ponderous wall found a more ponderous gate. It was riveted and studded with iron bolts, and surrounded with jagged iron spikes. But impressions of deep awe it didn't inspire. It was never opened, save for the three periodical aggressions and ingressions already mentioned. Then, in every creak of its mighty hinges, we found a plenitude of mystery. A world of matter for solemn remark, or for more solemn meditation. And the extensive enclosure was irregular in form, having many capacious recesses. Of these, 3 or 4 of the largest constituted the playground. It was level and covered with fine hard gravel. I will well remember it had no trees, nor benches, nor anything similar within it. Of course, it was in the rear of the house. In front lay a small parterre planted with box and other shrubs. But through this sacred division, we pass only upon rare occasions indeed, such as first advent to school or final departure. Thence, perhaps, when a parent or friend having called for us, we joyfully took our way home for the Christmas or midsummer holidays. But the house, how quaint an old building was this! To me, how veritably a palace of enchantment. There was really no end to its windings, to its incomprehensible subdivisions. It was difficult, at any given time, to say with certainty upon which its 2 stories one happened to be. From each room to every other there were sure to be found 3 or 4 steps, either in ascent or descent. Then the lateral branches were innumerable, inconceivable, and so returning in upon themselves that our most exact ideas in regard to the whole mansion are not very far different from those with which we pondered upon infinity. During the 5 years of my residence here, I was never able to ascertain with precision in what remote locality lay the little sleeping apartment assigned to myself and some 18 or 20 other scholars. The schoolroom was the largest in the house. I could not help thinking in the world it was a very long, narrow, and dismally low, with pointed Gothic windows and a ceiling of oak. In a remote and terror-inspiring angle was a square enclosure of 8 or 10 feet, comprising the sanctum. During hours of our principal, the Reverend Dr. Bransby, it was a solid structure with massy door, sooner than open which, in the absence of the dominie, we would all have willingly perished by the pine-foot Edgar. In other angles were 2 other similar boxes, far less reverence, indeed, but still greatly matters of awe. One of these was the pulpit of the classical usher, one of the English and mathematical. Interspersed about the room, crossing and recrossing in endless irregularity, were innumerable benches and desks, black, ancient, and time-worn, piled desperately with much bethumbed books, and so beseamed with initial letters, names at full length, grotesque figures, and other multiplied efforts of the knife, as to have entirely lost what little of original form might have been their portion in days long departed. A huge bucket with water stood at one extremity of the room, and a clock of stupendous dimensions at the other. Encompassed by the massy walls of this venerable academy, I passed, yet not in tedium or disgust, the years of the third lustrum of my life. The teeming brain of childhood requires no external world of incident to occupy or amuse it, and the apparently dismal monotony of a school was replete with more intense excitement than my riper youth was derived from luxury, or my full manhood from crime. Yet I must believe that my first mental development had in it much of the uncommon, even much of the outre. I hope I pronounced that right. Upon mankind at large, the events of very early existence rarely leave in mature age any definite impression. All is gray shadow. A weak and irregular remembrance, an indistinct regathering of feeble pleasures and phantasmagoric pains. With me, this is not so. In childhood, I must have felt with the energy of a man what I now find stamped upon memory in lines as vivid, as deep, and as durable as the exergus of the Carthaginian medals. Yet, in fact, in the fact of the world's view, how little was there to remember? The morning's awakening, the nightly summons to bed, the connings, the recitations, the periodical half-holidays, and the preambulations, the playground with its broils and its pastimes, its intrigues, these, by a mental sorcery long forgotten, were made to involve a wilderness of sensation, a world of rich incident, a universe of varied emotion, of excitement, the most passionate and spirit-stirring of le bon temps que ce siècle diffère. I don't know French, and I'm pretty sure that's French. Okay, you gotta look. I'm sorry. Clearly, I'm not the most immersive right now. Still working out the kinks of this, and this cough is being as much pain in my ass as it is yours. Okay, so. Cheers. And my nose is clogged, so I might have to grab a tissue here in a minute. How long is this one? I have like 17 more pages. Okay, so let me blow my nose. Alright? I'm sorry for breaking the immersion, but I really do gotta blow my nose. I'm pretty sure I had COVID. I never got tested for COVID, but one of my friends had COVID recently, and I got sick shortly after she did, so I'm probably suffering from that. Smoking does not help. So, sorry. In truth, the ardor, the enthusiasm, and the imperiousness of my disposition soon rendered me a marked character among my schoolmates, and by slow but natural gradations gave me an ascendancy over all not greatly older than myself. Over all, the single exception. This exception was found in the person of a scholar who, although no relation, bore the same Christian and surname as myself, A circumstance, in fact, little remarkable, for, notwithstanding a noble descent, mine was one of those everyday appellations which seem by prescriptive right to have been time out of mind. Sir, I am doing something right now. Do you see this? Are your paws? Ah! Mr. Wet Paws. Don't fuck up my book. Everyday appellation which seem by prescriptive right to have been time out of mind the common property of the mob. In this narrative, I have therefore designated myself as William Wilson, a fictitious title, not very dissimilar to the real. My namesake alone, of those who, in school, the phraseology constituted are said, presumed to compete with me in the studies of the class, in the sports and broils of the playground, to refuse implicit belief in my assertions of submissions to my will. Indeed, to interfere with my arbitrary dictation in any respect whatsoever. If there is on earth a supreme and unqualified despotism, it is the despotism of a mastermind in boyhood over the less energetic spirits of its companions. Wilson's rebellion was to me a source of the greatest embarrassment, the more so as, in spite of the bravado with which in public I made a point of treating him and his pretensions, I secretly felt that I feared him, and could not help thinking the equality with which he maintained so easily with myself a proof of his true superiority. Felt like I had to sneeze. Since not to be overcome cost me a perpetual struggle, yet this superiority, even this equality, was in truth acknowledged by no one but myself. Our associates, by some unaccountable blindness, seemed not to even suspect it. Indeed, his competition, his resistance, and especially his impertinent and dogged interference in my purposes were not more pointed than private. He appeared to be destitute alike of the ambition which urged, and of the passionate energy of mind which enabled me to excel. In this rivalry he might have been supposed actuated solely by a whimsical desire to thwart, astonish, or mortify myself, although there were times when I could not help observing with a feeling made up of wonder, abasement, and pique that he mingled with his inquiries, his injuries, his insults, or his contradictions, a certain most inappropriate and assuredly most unwelcome affectionateness of manner. I could only conceive the singular behavior to arise from a consummate self-conceit, assuming the vulgar airs of patronage and protection. Perhaps it was this latter trait in Wilson's conduct, conjoined with our identity of name and the mere accident of our having entered the school upon the same day, which set afloat the notion that we were brothers among the senior classes in the academy. These do not usually inquire with much strictness into the affairs of their juniors. I have before said, or should have said, that Wilson was not, in the most remote degree, connected with my family. But assuredly, if we had been brothers. We must have been twins. For after leaving Dr. Bransby's, I casually learned that my namesake was born on the 19th of January, 1813. And this is a somewhat remarkable coincidence, for the date is precisely that of my own nativity. It may seem strange that in spite of the continual anxiety occasioned me by the rivalry of Wilson and his intolerable spirit of contradiction, I cannot bring myself to hate him altogether. We had, to be sure, nearly every day a quarrel in which, yielding me publicly the palm of victory, he, in some manner, contrived to make me feel that I was he who had deserved it. Yet a sense of pride on my part, and a veritable dignity on his own, kept us always upon what are called speaking terms. While there were many points of strong congeniality in our tempers, operating to awaken in me a sentiment which our position alone perhaps prevented from my bringing into friendship, it is difficult indeed to define or even to describe my real feelings towards him. They formed a motley and heterogeneous admixture, some petulant animosity which was not yet hatred, some esteem, more respect, much fear, with a world of uneasy curiosity. To the moralist, it will be unnecessary to say, in addition, that Wilson and myself were the most inseparable of companions. Sorry. My sinuses are killing me right now. But you hate me if I can't make it through this. I'll do a part 2. I promise. My sinuses are just not being my friend today. My nose is hurting. My freaking head is starting to hurt. I really want to do this for you guys. I do. This is a lot of fun for me. I enjoy reading this stuff out loud. But clearly I'm still going through it, even though I'm not running a fever or feeling especially ill. Sorry. I am. Sorry for not finishing this. But that does seem like a good place as he reveals himself to be his friend. So this will be part 1. We'll have part 2 later. Forgive me. I don't have it for some reason. Sorry. I'll finish it at some other time.